Curious to know. So what is that four-phase framework like?
Four-phase framework. Well, it's really just the Wyckoff approach. Wyckoff starts with an accumulation distribution, so we'll put that to one side. After the breakout, there's what he calls a markup phase, trending phase, right? So for me, that is the first phase. That's the first phase framework. You've got rules dealing with directional moves. These are moves where the market moves in one direction. There's no pullback, and you have to form a set of rules to trade them. Now, the one thing you can say is that most people don't trade this. I call that the IPM, the initial price movement. I took that from Market Profile, which is exactly the same model. And the thing with that, most people don't trade that well, because what happens is, let's say they buy somewhere near the lows and they see the market go all the way up to whatever target they reach, and it gets there. They do one trade, that's it, and they think, oh, how clever I am. But really, what Pete taught me, Pete Stedelmeyer, he says that's the phase where you need to be aggressive and accumulate your positions. So instead of doing one, maybe you should be doing 5 or 10.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is to accumulate, so that when you accumulate, you no longer have a risk on the open position that you had to start off with. That's what I teach the students.
Okay.
So that's your IPM phase. The next phase is what Peter called the pause phase, which is a correction, if you will, within the strong directional move. You get the strong directional move, then it pauses. And there's a guy called Galen Woods came up with this idea of a 3-bar congestion, which I found useful. I adapted it to my own. I adapted his idea, and I found that really works as a strong continuation with a low risk, this high probability of success. Then we get into the more, those two I think are very easy phases. Then we get to the more difficult phase, where if the market's been moving up, you get into a distribution phase, where you then have to question, is the market likely to break out, continue to the upside, or is it likely to change its trend? And we need to, here I relied mainly on Market Profile methodology to identify. That's a third phase, which is breakout continuation and then breakout change in trend. Breakout change in trend was mainly the Wyckoff patterns. So I combined my Market Profile and Wyckoff and set up. As I said, each phase has only got 5 rules, and you're either there or you're not. It's simple. But what it does do is does two things. It eliminates some of those trades which discretionary traders got. Well, maybe it might do this and maybe it might do that. In this case, you're either in this phase or you're not. That's one. And secondly, it has what I call soft stops. So for example, if you take a 3-bar congestion breakout and the market comes back into congestion, you immediately exit without your stop being triggered. The soft stop. The market comes back, closes within congestion after the breakout, you're immediately out of the trade. Now remember, this is a very narrow band of congestion. That's why Galen calls it a 3-bar congestion. So it's not huge trading ranges, right? So you find that when I'm having an ebb phase, for example, instead of losing, I don't know, if your daily range is 80 pips, instead of losing 80 pips, you're losing 20 or 30.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference.
That's awesome. Like cutting your losses.
Yeah.
That's good.
So you keep your losses, like in this ebb phase that I had, and I am trading this myself. I think I had 23 trades, of which 16 were losses. Now, if you're risking 2%, and we had 16 losses, 23 trades, 16 losses, 4 winners, and the rest were what I call scratch trades, less than $100. So if you think about it, if your losses, that's 32%. 16 losses, 2%. 16 losses. For the month of February, we had a 1.62% loss after 16 losses.
Yeah.
And for 4 winners. So, you're never going to get that if you just rely on your hard stops. So that to me is a very important part of the system. And as I said, the other part is that it does eliminate a lot of the problems that discretionary traders have, because it becomes a bit too complex. These are very clear. You either take the trade, the setup's either there or it isn't. There's no ifs and buts. The drawback is that you might miss a couple of moves. That's all.
That's interesting. So the other thing people might do also for reducing their losses is moving their stop to break even. But I think that your way is better because you have a rule of like, if it goes there, it's likely not to work.
Yeah, the problem with and if you're managing a trade, the question, as Pete always taught me, was when do you make move your stop to break even. If you move it too early, you're not giving
that's
the
a
market
tricky one.
any.
Yeah,
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So one thing I could never do with Pete. Pete always, that's where my soft stops came in. Pete never used hard stops. He never put a stop in the market. It was always based on what the market was doing and whether or not it was doing what he thought it should do if the trade was good. And that's all right for Pete, but you know, you can't.
That's a tough one.
That's a very tough one. So I have a hard stop, beyond which the market gets. If the market gets there, I'm out of the trade no matter what. And when you're having an ebb stage, invariably the market, if you don't get out early enough, the market will hit the stop and then go your way. I mean, that's the way the ebb stage works, right? But I'm not prepared to. I've seen Peter sit through some horrendous, and he'd sit there and look at it and say, "No, this is going to come back." And yeah, okay, in my memory, it did come back. But I wouldn't have sat through that. It's just, the thought of, oh my God, look at it. Oh, it's losing. I'm going to get wiped out. It takes a lot of courage and, how would I put it? Fortitude. Also, I've got to say something with Pete. When the market, no matter how much the loss was, when he decided that he was wrong and that the market was not doing what he wanted, he would cut it. So, so I decided to have soft stops and hard stops, and I felt that works for me.